evil, to be profoundly immoral and wicked. There are, on average, 1.3 million violent crimes in the U.S. annually, 800,000 assaults, 90,000 rapes, and 15 to 20,000 murders. Murderers are not monsters, they're men. And that's the most frightening thing about them. Alice Siebel. Megan, a licensed mental health professional, and her husband, Paul, a police officer, sit down to examine and discuss the nature, the impact, and most importantly, the origins of evil.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Paul Braun.
And I'm Megan Braun.
And this is The Origins of Evil, a podcast about morose motherfuckers with murderous machinations. Here we are, Megan. Episode 3. We done did it. We did the thing.
This is the most consistent I've been with anything in my life ever.
Yes. Things you want to hear from your therapist. No, but we hit a nice little milestone. Actually, right after we released episode 2, we officially crossed over to 250 downloads.
What episode?
Episode 2, as the French would say. as famous crustacean character from The Little Mermaid.
Papa Louis.
Pierre Louis.
Oh.
You didn't even goddamn remember his name. God
the
damn
name
it,
I
Megan.
thought he had.
You are killing me.
It's been a long year.
Has it? Oh, yeah. It's 2022. That's a thing. Last time we saw you guys, it was New Year's Eve. Oh, update on Cindy White. Still in jail.
She's still in federal prison. Oh, okay.
I guess we'll give a yearly update on that or something. I don't know. But just wanted to thank everyone out there who gives a listen and, listen, a like, a subscribe, a little review on whatever podcast service you choose to use would be greatly appreciated. And for the hearing impaired crowd, we do put up a video version of the podcast on YouTube that is closed captioning, so you can enjoy all the absolute insanity that is us putting on this show. Megan, how you been? How's everything been going?
Everything's been going pretty good. I can't really think of anything too exciting that has happened since the last episode.
Are you being facetious or?
No.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if this was like one of those passive-aggressive wife things where it's like, fuck, what did I forget? What is she trying to get me to say?
I mean, let's see. Betty White and Bob Saget died.
Yes, one significantly older than the other.
My pap smear came back as normal.
Something to be concerned about. Ladies, get checked. And men get checked. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Everyone get their smears papped.
If I was a pop star, I'd be Britney Spears. And you would be Tupac Shakur. I'm sorry. That's terrible.
That was really bad. Thank God Tupac is dead because he would have just died again listening to that joke.
Yeah, cut the abnormal pap smear.
Oh, no, that's all staying in. 100% that's staying in. We'll give you an update on that next episode so you can know how Megan's doing. So, Megan, has anything in particular been going on in the world of televisual events these last 2 weeks? Have we been consuming any media that might be pertinent to this podcast?
We finished Dexter, New Blood. I am...
No spoilers.
I'm not going to give any spoilers. I'm shooketh.
Yes.
I am not surprised. I cried.
Yes, she did.
I sobbed.
Now, we are both, I would say, huge fans of the show Dexter.
Huge. I love you, Michael C. Hall. If you're listening, which you're not, I love you.
Please do more stuff. You're so good.
You're such a good actor.
Your voice is audible chocolate. Narrate more Stephen King books.
Oh my gosh, yes. Michael C. Hall narrated the audible book of Pet Sematary by Stephen King, my favorite author, and it's amazing. Yeah. I highly recommend.
And Stephen King, if you're listening, that period in the 80s where you did lots of cocaine and you wrote about child orgies in the sewer, you get a mulligan on that one. We forgive you.
I love you, Stephen.
Love you, Stephen.
Please send me a signed napkin. That would make me happy.
Literally a cocktail napkin with like gum in it would make her happy. But we were both huge fans of Dexter. And I think Megan and I are of the same opinion that the ending to the original series was hot garbage. Oh, God. Really, the last, 3 seasons were quite bad. They were very bad.
I didn't think they were very bad, but it was definitely, they definitely lost a little something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was.
I mean, I could explain to you that they changed showrunners every season, so the vision and tone of the show would be radically different because they would basically, it was just like an Etch-a-Sketch that they would shake. But the original showrunner came back for this revival, this mini-series, whatever you want to call it. And the final season ending on a really shit note kind of can get fixed if this new season is all about dealing with the consequences of that. And it was, and it did, and it felt very cinematic. It was shot very differently. I'm sorry, I do a movies podcast that covers this kind of stuff because that's my other thing that I do. So if you want more of that content, jump on over to On the Rocks, conversational podcast about movies. But it was really good.
I am not part of that podcast because I don't remember any movie names, any characters, what happened. Paul will remember every detail of every movie. And I'll just be like, what happened in this movie? I remember 3 movies. Jaws, The Lord of the Rings, the first 3, and then the Harry Potter movies. And that's about, I could probably talk about those.
To be fair, that's 11 movies.
And that's it.
It's a lot of movies. So Dexter was good. Check it out.
Yeah, Dexter was amazing. And
yeah, Mr. Krabs.
So great. Such a great season.
So I'm very excited to talk about this new one. This new case actually is something that I discovered on social media. Somebody posted a little video about this, a little excerpt, and it intrigued me. And then I fell down the rabbit hole that is this truly bizarre case, and I'm super stoked to tell everyone about it. But before we get into it, we're going to do a quick round of trigger warnings. So,
Pew.
Yes.
Sorry, I stuck up my finger guns.
She did. I felt very, very unsafe, personally. So, fortunately, I'm off duty and I don't have to react in any kind of way. So, trigger warning for this episode, we are obviously going to be discussing murder, but there will also be some discussion of things like stalking and dismemberment. So, if that's something that you're not cool with, that's fine. Just, don't listen to this episode. It's all good. Listen to the episode with the one where all the kids got killed or the one where the woman burned the house down with children in it. Those are much lighter in tone.
Oh my God.
So let's just jump right into it. Origins of Evil, episode number 3, Lauren Giddings, the girl next door. Lauren Giddings was a northern transplant living in Macon, Georgia. Lauren was born on April 18th, 1984, to parents Karen and William Giddings, and had 2 younger sisters, Caitlin and Sarah. Laura grew up in a small town in Maryland called Laurel, which was precariously situated between D.C. and Baltimore. She had moved to Georgia to attend Mercer Law School, but was primarily motivated by her love of the South. Her childhood friend, Katie O'Hare, would describe her as a country girl at heart. Lauren had a pretty sweet setup. She had a lovely apartment right across the street from her school, which was super convenient because school parking is a fucking atrocity. And I'm sure you can attest to this. You pay tens of thousands of dollars to go to a school and then they make you pay for parking. Fuck that.
Yeah, and often you have to stalk people in the parking lot for their spots. I remember when I went to St. John's, I would drive around, find someone, pick them up in my car, and offer to drive them to the spot just so I could have it. Which is totally how you end up being on a podcast like this, but as someone
Megan,
talked
are you
about.
Fucking kidding me? You did that?
I most certainly did. That was the lifestyle I lived back then.
Back then, in the fucking early 2010s?
Yeah, listen. St. John's was no joke about being on time, so.
Okay, just for perspective, everyone, not only is Megan married to a cop, her dad is a cop, and my God, if he ever hears that you did that, he might build a time machine and go back in time.
He might regret not co-signing my student loan so I could go to state school and be in a dorm and walk everywhere.
Oh, shots fired. Okay. Well,
Sorry, Dad.
Megan went to a big girl school. I was over at art school, which explains so much about everything with me. Anyway, she lived in this cute apartment building. Both her neighbor and the maintenance man for the building attended the school as well. She was very active at school, eventually becoming the president of the law school's Federalist Society. And in addition, she would often be seen just jogging the grounds or walking her adorable little dog. And almost exclusively doing all of this dressed in pink. I don't know about you. I'm getting some Major Elle Wood vibes.
Yeah, and like just looking at her, you could tell like she totally like bends and snaps.
Megan,
Ooh.
I was about to say that actually that's how you and I met. You used the old bend and snap technique. True story.
What? Yeah.
No, none of that happened. You were eating pasta salad at a barbecue and
You were lonely.
So lonely. Cripplingly lonely. Just me and my pet rats. So a pretty blonde, intelligent, and ambitious woman is bound to catch the eye of quite a few men. And Lauren Giddings was no exception to that rule. Lauren met David Vanderveer while interning at his law firm in Atlanta. I will note that David is 20 years older than Lauren. Even though that's a recipe for disaster, the relationship seemed healthy enough. I mean, it's definitely a little questionable to be picking up one of the interns at your law firm and just being like, I'll date you. That might be
Sounds problematic.
it's a little bit of faux pas, a little bit of quid pro quo, but this isn't a sexual harassment seminar. It's a goddamn podcast about murder and such, so we will move on from that shit. It would become evident that David had some commitment issues, and Lauren had the propensity to be a bit of a flirt. Long-distance relationships can be challenging, and being in college complicates things significantly. So things end, and she starts seeing a classmate, Joe. So Lauren and Joe are dating, and it's going well enough. On paper, this relationship is a much better fit. They have shared interests, are closer in age, and they live in the same city. But something about David just pulls Lauren back in. So eventually Lauren leaves Joe and gets back with David. David would be present at Lauren's graduation from Mercer Law School in May of 2011. The following month, the family would reunite for Caitlin's wedding, of which Lauren was the maid of honor. It was a joyous event that the entire family attended. It would also mark the last time her family would see her alive and in one piece. Following Lauren's return home, she would have to go and prepare for the final step of becoming an attorney, the bar exam. Da-na-na. But before all her fellow graduates were to sequester themselves in a deluge of study guides, textbooks, caffeine, and Adderall, one final night to let loose was in store. Friday night, near the end of June 2011, Lauren would attend a get-together at the local bar. Then after last call, the party continued at Ashley's boyfriend's house. Ashley Muller was a good friend of Lauren, and Ashley happened to be dating Joe's roommate. That's right. Joe, that Lauren broke up with for David. They do what people do when they have a last hurrah, and they get absolutely shit-faced. Lauren ends up spending the night in Joe's room.
Strictly platonic, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. Nothing happened. Nothing happened at all. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insinuate. Don't speak ill of the dead. Spoiler alert. After that night, the entire group descended into their cram session to prepare for the bar. It's not uncommon to not hear from somebody for a few days during a time like this. Hell, you'd even be remiss for not realizing that you haven't heard from a friend for a few days.
Yeah, I don't think I spoke to anyone when I was studying for my licensing exam. I was just like, this is way too expensive for me to take more than once, so I'm just gonna be a shut-in and
yeah, for like the 6 to 7
study.
months that I was in the police academy, I just kind of disappeared off the face of the planet. Probably because I was in agonizing pain when I wasn't there. Running. A lot of running, and I don't like running. Here's the secret, just run. I ain't chasing you. So Katie O'Hare, however, wasn't studying for the bar. She was living her typical everyday life, so she noticed when Lauren stopped responding to text messages. Katie was still living up north, and when Lauren was visiting for her sister's wedding, the two had time to get together. Katie found some very funny pictures that the two had taken, and she texted them to Lauren. There was no response, though. This very much starts to worry Katie. So she reaches out to Lauren's sister, Caitlin, and lets her know that she cannot get in touch with her. Caitlin can also not reach her sister, so she contacts Ashley, one of the last people to see Lauren alive. It's Wednesday. The last time anyone had any contact with Lauren was the previous Friday night, a night which Lauren spent in her ex's bedroom. Ashley goes to Lauren's apartment and no one answers the door, even though her car is there. Ashley leaves unconcerned. A few hours pass and Lauren's sister contacts Ashley again, very worried. This gives Ashley the push she needs to investigate further. She returns to the apartment with her boyfriend, and under the direction of Lauren's sister, they use a hider key to enter. The pair walk through a dark apartment, prepared to see the worst. However, all they find is her purse, keys, cell phone, along with all of her other personal effects. Both Lauren and her dog were gone. Now Butterbean was accounted for, as the pup was staying with Lauren's parents.
Love that name.
That's a great name. That's a great name for a tiny little dog.
Little Butterbean.
Little Butterbean. You know, he's probably up for adoption. As for Lauren, it wouldn't be out of the question for those items to be left there if Lauren had just gone out for a run. But it becomes highly suspicious when you consider the fact that no one could get in touch with her for days. That's when they make a startling observation. Lauren had a calendar up on her wall, and she had marked June 30th as move-out day. There they stand, in an apartment that was to be emptied in less than 24 hours. Barely any signs of packing. Lauren had planned on moving in with her boyfriend David in Atlanta. That was to be the most significant step they made in their relationship. One described by friends and family as flaky. David had not heard from her either. Lauren's friends begin to search for her. Her ex, Joe, looks around the school campus, while her other friends and neighbor Stephen go through her apartment with a fine-tooth comb. Stephen suggests checking the windows and the doors to make sure they are locked. A word of advice: don't do that. Suppose you suspect something terrible has happened to a friend and you start stomping around their apartment to look for clues. In that case, all you're doing is contaminating the scene and potentially destroying evidence. Instead, call the police. Please, let investigators do their job. In any event, they find a receipt in her car for a local restaurant timestamped Saturday at 6:08 p.m. And that helps us infer that she was still okay at that time. And we could potentially use CCTV to confirm that. See, things like that are good because they help narrow the window.
By the way, just speaking of CCTV, there is an excellent show on ID Discovery called See No Evil. And it's all about crimes that have been solved as a result of the usage of CCTV. It's very interesting. I highly recommend it.
But is Candace DeLong on there with them eyebrows?
She's not.
She's not?
She's not. But there's a lot of interesting crime footage on there.
There is. It's actually a very interesting show.
Paul knows because I force him to watch it.
You know, I keep trying to explain to her, like, that's like my job. And, you know, I don't force her to watch movies that are deconstructions of very mentally ill people. That's a fucking lie. Yes, I do. Remember on my birthday when I made you go see You Were Never Really Here in the City?
Yeah, if you are just, like, if you're ever in the mood to be really sad and depressed, watch that movie. Definitely not a movie I would recommend going to see on, like, a happy occasion, like a birthday, but
I mean,
Paul didn't feel that way.
I would argue that many people do not consider the birth of Paul Denino Braun.
I wanted to go see It's Quiet Here, but he just, like, didn't want to go see that.
You wanted to see what?
A Quiet Place.
It's Quiet Here. Starring James Kaczynski and Emily Bowl.
Yeah.
Get it, like Blonde and
I get it.
Bowl. It was some weed humor. So eventually they find Lauren's laptop and gain access to it. In it, they find an email that she sent to David on Saturday at about 10:13 p.m. Lauren states in the email that she felt as though someone was trying to break into her apartment. The very night before she sent that email, Lauren told her friends while at a party that she was concerned someone might be stalking her.
Somebody's eyes are watching. That's all I remember from when I was in Footloose, the play in high school. There was a scene. I remember I got, like, broken up with while that scene played, and I was very, very upset.
Oh yeah, which boyfriend was this?
Just high school.
Oh, you're not gonna say a name?
Well, maybe he's a fan now. I'm just kidding. His name was Andrew. Andrew, you remember dumping me senior year of high school in the bleachers while Footloose practice went on in the background.
He just had to cut loose.
I'm pretty sure that's why he did it.
He kicked off his Sunday shoes. His Sunday shoes being
me.
High school aged Megan Marrero with a terrible bob haircut. Love you, babe. So unfortunately, they didn't put much thought into it, assuming it to be hyperbole. Because how often do someone's all pretty and stuff and is like, oh man, I just thought that somebody's stalking me. Somebody's following me. Like you could see somebody like drunk, like drumming that up and for attention and something like that. So finally, they call 911. Once the police arrive, Ashley forms a search party with her boyfriend, Lauren's neighbor, Steven, and Lauren's ex, Joe. And they scour the campus and town all night looking for her. So given the highly suspicious nature of this missing persons case, crime scene is dispatched to the apartment. They arrive on the scene and completely block the entrance to the complex. The garbage men couldn't even back their truck in to empty out the apartment's trash. Crime scene investigator Lieutenant Steve Giddings of the Macon Police Department enters Lauren's apartment and begins his investigation. On the surface, nothing seems wrong. He recalls that it looked as though somebody had just walked out and closed the door. Perplexed, Giddings walks out of the apartment and begins to descend the stairs. That's when it happens. A strong summer breeze rolls through the complex, carrying on it a particular odor, one that cannot be confused with any other. It was the scent of death, the stench of decay. There is no way to describe the smell of a dead body. Once you smell it, you never, ever forget it. The stench was emanating from the complex's trash bins. Giddings knew what he would find in the trash bin before they even opened it. However, he couldn't imagine what horrific shape it would be in. A woman's torso in a black trash bag.
So before we get to that, I know for a fact that you have come across a dead body or two in your line of work. So smelling that, what has that experience been like for you?
A lot of it depends on how long it's been and the temperature of the house, honestly. Like, you find a body and it's been 2 weeks, but it's like the dead of winter and they didn't set the thermostat, you're probably going to be like, okay. But there's nothing worse than walking into a house where like it's the dead of summer, no air conditioning has been turned on, it's been 3+ weeks, and like they just liquefy at a certain point and fuse to the carpet. It makes getting them out of the house a little bit easier because they shed most of the weight. But like there's like bloat flies and stuff flying around. It gets really gnarly. And
there's nothing you can think of where you could say like it kind of smells like this.
Even animals, even dead animals, don't smell like a dead human.
Oh gosh.
It's just, there is no analog I can give you, and I'm sorry that I can't properly describe it. Just know that it is completely distinguishable from anything else.
It's kind of like one of those things, or I imagine it's one of those things where it's like you smell it, and even if you've never smelt that smell before, you just know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to the first time that I had that, and it definitely was one of those instantly like, I've never come across this. I know I'm only 26 when I got on, but like that, yeah, that can only be that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this drastically changes the scope and the intention of this investigation. Officers immediately taped off the area as it is a crime scene, and they start to meticulously comb through Lauren's apartment. Even though they don't have a positive ID on this body part, the odds of it being an unrelated incident they're astronomical. So officers proceed under the assumption that the human remains belong to Lauren. One of the tools that officer had at their disposal was luminol. Luminol is essentially a sprayable compound that will reveal invisible blood stains under a black light. Giddings sprays the bathroom, turns off the lights, and the room lights up like a goddamn laser tag arena. There was blood in the bathtub, and a lot of it. Now they know to focus on the bathroom, and can you believe that they couldn't find a single fingerprint in that room?
Wow.
Not a one. Fingerprints are a real bitch, honestly. Like if the humidity is off, like none of them are usable. It's really frustrating, actually. Somehow, the news of this grim discovery leaks to the press, and a story is published online about a body being found in the trash at Lauren's apartment building. Back in Maryland, Lauren's family comes across this story, left to assume the worst. This is how they found out Lauren had been murdered.
Wait, I'm sorry. Somehow it was leaked to the press?
Yeah.
Are you going to get into that later?
It seems like a picture was taken, and then people just were able to infer that, okay, we have a picture, crime tape. I mean, it could have been leaked by someone. It would be all speculation. But point is, it's out there now. It's out in the ether.
Gotcha.
And that's how they found out that their daughter and sister had been murdered. It's it's Kobe Bryant situation all over again.
Oh my God, that was terrible.
Yeah. Her father was on his way down to Macon when he was notified of the news by his family. It's an 11-hour drive.
Oh, right, because they're in Maryland, right?
11 hours.
Oh my God.
He went to police headquarters to identify the body, and he clearly wasn't aware of its condition. I mean, no one outside of the department was. Police Chief Mike Burns flatly denies William Giddings' request. Chief Burns was trying to spare William the pain of seeing his daughter's remains, but William pushed. And Chief Burns finally tells him the truth, that there is nothing but an armless, legless, headless torso left. Quote, "That is not the last way you want to remember your daughter." Williams agrees and then submits to a DNA swab to identify the remains, and it comes back a match confirming what we all already knew. Lauren Giddings is dead. God. Now the investigation is kicked into high gear.
I was going to say, how can you even identify that unless she had some type of tattoo?
Distinguishing marks.
Yeah, it's... Ugh.
Yeah, gun to my head, I don't really know what your fucking shoulder looks like against other people's.
Yeah.
The non-tattooed one. That's right. She's got a tattoo on her torso, so anybody with any funny ideas, you're going to have to burn it off with a blowtorch or something. Just if you wanted to murder Megan, which...
Hopefully you don't.
No, please don't do that. Someone killed Lauren Giddings and then cut up her body and threw it into the trash. I think back to when she raised the concern to her friends that someone had been stalking her. The email that she sent to David the night she disappeared. Lauren spent a lot of time visiting prisoners as she was interested in becoming a public defender. Could she have gotten close to someone dangerous? Perhaps the love triangle between her, David, and Joe came to a head. Unfortunately, there were many people with potential motives to hurt Lauren. So investigators start to question everyone close to her. They interview Stephen, Lauren's neighbor of 3 years and fellow law student, and member of the Federalist Society of which she was president. Stephen is as helpful as he can be. Like others, he had sequestered himself in preparation for the bar exam, so he didn't have much information. After talking to a few of Lauren's friends, suspicion is shifted over to her ex, Joe, one of the last people to see her alive. Detectives find out that the two are former intimate partners, and that Lauren is the one who called things off. They also learn that she had spent the night with Joe, even though she planned to move in with David by the month's end. Here we have a good old-fashioned love triangle, sans werewolf and pussy diamond vampires. David Vanderveer and Joe, two men who had Lauren torn between them, two men who had motives for murder. Detectives interview David. They learn that he was in California on a golf outing during the time in question. Now, they ask him to prove this in some capacity. Receipts, bookings, credit card statements, anything. They end up not getting it for him, and they reach out, and they're like, hey, you were going to verify that you were out of state. Like, what's the deal? He's like, oh, sorry. There was an issue with the attachments. Give me 1 second. And his story checks out. He sends all the proof over. Because many of Lauren's friends were being interviewed and didn't have access to their phones, many weren't aware of the entire situation. Basically, some of them had no idea that her body had been found. So they're sitting there waiting to be interviewed. They think that she's still alive. They still think this is a missing persons case. They are all released, and many return to the scene, where a bevy of cop cars and news crews swarm the complex. WGXA manages to snag Lauren's neighbor Stephen for an interview. And this right here, this is where the entire course of this investigation changes. I'm going to play an excerpt from this interview. Keep in mind, Stephen was just in police custody and is unaware of the news regarding the discovery of Lauren's body.
What kind of person was she? I mean, what did you see her?
I mean, she's as nice as can be. I mean, very personable, very much a people person.
Do you know any enemies she might have had, somebody that might want to hurt her?
No, we don't know where she is. I mean, the only thing we can think is that maybe she went out running and someone snatched her. Because we went over. One of her friends had a key. We went inside and tried to see if there was anything amiss, but I mean, she had a door jamb that was sitting right by it, so there was no sign that anyone broke in. I mean, the door was locked when everyone got here. I mean, we just don't know where she is.
What about in the parking lot area? I know they've been doing a lot of. I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. So that's why we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
Stephen goes completely comatose at the discovery that part of Lauren's body had been found. Giddings has to do a sternal rub on him to get him responsive again. This is not the reaction of someone finding out their neighbor had been murdered. This was something different. This was fear. This was enough to warrant another, more intense interview with detectives. The video of this interrogation is chilling. Stephen sits rigidly, palms down on the table, mechanically answering with yes or no. It's bizarre, to say the least. Stephen never budges, and as detectives question him, officers go through his apartment where they find an interesting item. Condoms. Now, I know that's not really that weird, but...
Oh, no.
Yes, he was being safe. So typically finding condoms in the apartment of a college-age man is really not, it's not that weird. But in a previous interview, Stephen made it a point to say that he was a virgin and saving himself for marriage. I mean...
What's that about?
Not to be a dick, but really? You're saving yourself? You're turning everyone down, Stephen, with your overall persona and wild... Yes, sure. Let's go with that narrative, Stephen. Sorry, that was mean, but you won't feel bad in a little bit. So detectives ask him, why does he have them? Why have condoms if you're going to be waiting for... Is there something we don't know? Get married next week, buddy? And Stephen takes a beat and tells them that he took them from another person's apartment. He stole them. He admits to stealing from his neighbor, and he's charged with burglary. Why Stephen would ever admit to something so stupid is beyond me. Because I want to say this guy's a fucking moron, but he isn't. He can't demonstrably be an idiot. I mean, he got through law school, but if you're under scrutiny for murder and you confess to a seemingly unrelated felon, why? Why just be like, yeah, I bought them. Better to have them, not need them.
Well,
I don't know.
Intelligence doesn't always mean common sense. And, when I talk a little bit about, mental health in this case later,
yeah,
we'll see that intelligence isn't always related to your mental health either.
As investigators continue to search the apartment complex, they discover a crucial piece of evidence in the communal laundry room. A locked door leads to a maintenance room, and in that room hung a hacksaw with traces of blood on the blade, as if it had been cleaned off haphazardly. Only one person is supposed to have access to that room, the maintenance man. So he's brought in for questioning, but denies ever having seen that hacksaw before, and he provides a solid alibi. Turns out there is someone that does have access to not only that room, but every single apartment in that complex. 2 keys are found in Stephen's apartment, one of which appears to be brand new. The older key is a master key to the complex. The new one is for Lauren's apartment. They also find a flash drive full of Lauren's personal photos. Now, to put on my very best Joe Kenda impression, well, my, how the red flags are flying. As if it wasn't enough.
Wait. How are you just going to reference Joe Kenda and
Lieutenant
not talk
Detective
about
Joe
the
Kenda.
legend that this man is?
Lieutenant Detective Joe Kenda of the Colorado Police Department.
Colorado Springs
Police Department. Oh, sorry.
With a, I believe...
What was his clearance rate?
97%.
This guy actually was a real fucking savage. He's pretty legit.
He's a badass. He's awesome. He has a show. Oh my God. ID Discovery should pay me. On ID Discovery.
Next week's episode brought to you by ID Discovery.
Yeah, it's also on Hulu.
It's on what?
Oh, Hulu. And I think the ID Discovery Plus streaming service. But it's called Homicide Hunter, and it's all of his cases, Lieutenant Joe Kenda's cases that he cleared while working in the Homicide Department of Colorado Springs. It's an amazing show. He's a badass.
Yeah, and you can get the guy who plays young Joe Kenda to give you a shout out on Cameo.
That's right.
It's funny because he looks nothing like Joe Kenda. They got this like traditional, good-looking Hollywood type guy to play him. It's just very funny.
It's like, you didn't look like that at all when you were young.
I think that casting is better than the casting they did for his wife, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh my God. Is the casting for his wife, is that the like fake psychic from Goop?
Oh my God, you're right.
I'm going to have to look into this now.
Like, I don't think they're the same person, but they look very similar. Sorry, we went down a weird rabbit hole where we watched a bunch of Goop things to make fun of Gwyneth Paltrow just being a charlatan and conning the rich and special out of their money. But back to the case. As if it wasn't enough that they found all that shit in his apartment, they find packaging that matches the hacksaw that was used to dismember Lauren. They also find woman's underwear in Lauren's apartment, and DNA would confirm that that belonged to Lauren. So it's a lot of souvenirs to be taken. It's almost like somebody wanted that all to be found. It's almost like an orgy of evidence was planted. Or was it? I don't know. We'll find out. Let's keep going. So with all that evidence coming to light, investigators are able to clear David and Joe and the maintenance man, whose name I could not find anywhere. Sorry, maintenance man. I don't like to, demean people and just refer to them by their profession. So Stephen is the primary suspect. However, investigators still lack a few very essential things: motive, cause of death, and direct evidence. Think about that. They have no idea how she died. She could have been shot, stabbed, bludgeoned. They just don't know. All they could tell was that she was dismembered with a hacksaw and that she was not sexually assaulted. Right now, what they have is means. We know that Stephen had the means to enter Lauren's apartment and kill her, but we do not know how or why. All of the evidence that we have is circumstantial. So this is still very far away from an airtight case. August 2nd, Stephen McDaniels is charged with murder. And there it is, guys. What are we? 30 minutes in? Boom, I fucking got you. His last name is McDaniels. Just like the fictional Tom Cruise vehicle, Harry McDaniels.
That's going to haunt me forever.
I will bring it up every goddamn episode, Megan. Every single one. I'll get Cuba Gooding Sr. to come on the show and talk about it, and he'll be like, that was my son. And I'll be like, God damn it. Sorry, sir. Anyway, did that Daddy Day Camp money run out yet, or no? Okay.
That's not... What?
Daddy Day Camp, the sequel to Daddy Day Care, where they couldn't get Eddie Murphy back, so they got Cuba Gooding Jr. post-Oscar.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's a real bummer. So at this point, Stephen maintains his innocence. But let's look back at some of his behavior after Lauren disappeared. Stephen deliberately inserted himself into this situation, intending to steer the investigation in the wrong direction. While helping search for Lauren's apartment, the first thing he does is to point out that all the windows and doors are locked. Stephen is planting the seed that only someone with a key could have entered the apartment, so Lauren must have left on her own accord. The second thing Stephen does is he pushes this narrative that something must have happened to her while she was out jogging. It would explain her personal effects being at home, and it pushes the investigation away from the real murder scene. Stephen pitches this theory to both the news and investigators. Stephen was on his way to becoming a lawyer, and he knows that as it stands, the case against him is weak, District Attorney K. David Cook Jr. agrees. Quote, "I was worried that unless we had more, that this was going to be a case where everybody knew that he did it, but nobody could prove it." So let's take a minute and discuss the different kinds of evidence, what circumstantial means, and why it isn't always enough for a conviction. So Megan, do you know anything about this?
Circumstantial?
Versus direct evidence.
Yes, but not in a way where I can, explain it.
Fantastic, then I will do it. I'm going to explain the shit out of this, guys. So at its most basic level, there are two types of evidence, direct and circumstantial. Direct evidence is evidence that, if believed, directly proves a fact. DNA, eyewitness testimony, CCTV, these are all examples of direct evidence. Circumstantial evidence is not drawn from a direct observation of a fact in issue. It is a set of circumstances in which a reasonable person could infer the defendant is guilty. In the eyes of the court, both circumstantial and direct evidence are valid forms of evidence. There is no physical evidence that Stephen had actually been inside Lauren's apartment. And aside from the used panties, none of Lauren's DNA was inside Stephen's apartment. There were no witnesses, no CCTV, nothing that directly showed that Stephen murdered Lauren. No direct evidence. Now, any rational person could look at the fact that Stephen had a key to her apartment, that he was in possession of her underwear and personal photos, the fact that the hacksaw packaging was in his apartment, that it matched the tool that was used to chop up her body. Any reasonable person can infer that he did this. But the name of the game is beyond a reasonable doubt. Any defense attorney worth their salt knows that, and Stephen's defense team had their attack plan ready. In a strange aside, Stephen's lawyer was Lauren's professor. Fucking
What made him take that
yikes.
case? Oh, well, okay. I do know what made him take that case, I guess.
What? That he thought.
He thought he was innocent
And I guess,
up until...
yeah, I guess, if your intention is to catch the real killer, then yeah, all right. The prosecution seized Stephen's laptop as evidence, and the initial scan did not yield any evidence. Therefore, upon the request of the DA, new software was utilized to go through Stephen's laptop. They find a plethora of sadistic sexual content, lots of sexual violence. However, this is all legal. So attempt number 2 is a bust. The trial is now rapidly approaching, and Stephen is poised to have a real chance at walking. His legal team is already actively trying to have several pieces of crucial evidence stricken from the record. They argue that Stephen's apartment was not adequately secured between the multiple searches. They go as far as to question the validity of the search warrants. Everyone is gearing up for a messy trial. That is when the FBI comes in with the bombshell. They recovered a truly chilling video from Stephen's digital camera. Little tech aside, as somebody who works in film, deleting something off a memory card or formatting a card does not mean the media is gone.
Oh, really? Where's our engagement video?
Well, I was going to say there are ways to recover it. It's not always foolproof, though.
Do we need to get the FBI involved in our case? So Paul proposed to me at Bethesda Fountain in Central Park in New York City, and his brother actually filmed it. It was beautiful, beautiful moment. I didn't cry up until, he told me that my best friend would be coming.
Yeah, you bitch.
And that I broke down. But of course, none of this is on camera because the card, from my understanding, was formatted.
No,
this card got corrupted. It was our...
The video files got corrupted.
Yes, and it was our engagement party video that got the card got formatted. Remember that?
Yes.
I remember that.
Well, pretty sure he's a listener, so. This is shot through the window to Lauren's second-story apartment from the night before she was murdered. It would have been absolutely catastrophic for the defense if this were played at trial. Stephen and his counsel both knew that. It was not worth the risk of losing this fight. Now, it's worth noting that while this is a death penalty state, the DA...
Georgia? You're kidding.
Yeah, I know,
I'm
right?
just kidding. Sorry. Love you, Georgia.
Yes. So it's a death penalty state, but the DA actually advised against pursuing the death penalty. He did that because he felt that their case was not particularly strong and the extra scrutiny would hurt their chances at a conviction. Looking at you, Casey Anthony. You fucking bitch.
God, don't even get me started.
Hey, Casey, let me know when you find the real killer, please.
That you are clearly very active in looking for since you were wrongly accused. You know, all the work that you put in.
It was Zanny the nanny. We've been over this.
I'm sorry.
She's the fucking worst.
God. I want her fake job at Universal. I want to take someone on a wild goose chase and be like, I work in the White House. How far do you think I would get? Oh, I don't work here.
I don't know. Well, I'm interested to hear your evaluation of her one day.
Oh, God.
So this video was what led to Stephen McDaniels taking a plea deal. He confesses to entering Lauren's apartment at about 4:30 in the morning, dressed in black head to toe with a ski mask. He then entered her bedroom and she woke up. A fight ensues, and during it, she ripped off his mask. He eventually pins her down and strangles her to death on her bedroom floor. She begs him, Stephen, don't do this. He also incurred some defensive wounds during this, some scratches, which he tried to argue that he did that to himself in his sleep. He then dragged her body into the bathroom and placed it in the tub. He dismembered her and disposed of her torso in the apartment complex's trash bins and dumped the rest of her body in a dumpster at the Mercer Law School, which was right across the street. No other remains have ever been found. Only her torso was recovered. Stephen methodically cleans the apartment, removing all blood and any traces of his DNA or fingerprints. In 2014, Stephen Mark McDaniel is sentenced to life in prison, and he will be eligible for parole in 2044. He'll be 59. In 2018, Stephen appealed his conviction. He claimed excessive force, intimidation, improper interrogation techniques, and that the search of his apartment was unlawful. And my personal favorite, he claimed his rights were never read to him. Just think about that. He's implying, without the police notifying him of his rights, that he couldn't have possibly known them. While I believe that's valid in a defense for some, it doesn't really work for Stephen. It might be the fact that he had just secured a law degree and was studying for the bar exam. I don't know. I think he's full of shit. And the judge seemed to agree with me. They took my assessment and the appeal was rejected outright. Today, Stephen McDaniels is incarcerated at the Hancock State Prison in Georgia. D.A. Cook believed Stephen would be a serial killer if not caught, and I am inclined to agree with him. I hope he never sees the light of day ever again. Lauren's sister reflects on the 10th anniversary of her murder. Quote, "It seemed like she might have been one of those people who was actually nice to him and gave him some attention, even though he might have been a loner," explained Caitlin. There's no story here about telling your kids to lock their car when they get in or don't go out to this side of town. You know, there's no she shouldn't have done this and it wouldn't have happened, because you should always be nice to people. You should always be nice to your neighbors. Just because someone looks different doesn't always mean they are. But in this case, he just was. There is an extra layer of tragedy on top of all this. Lauren didn't want to just practice any kind of law. Lauren wanted to be a public defender. She was very active in the public defender program at Mercer Law School. Lauren Giddings was killed by one of the very people she could have been defending one day. And that is the case of the girl next door. Megan, this one.
Yeah.
I am so intrigued to hear your input about this fucking guy.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on here. So once again, I would like to point out that I am not diagnosing Stephen McDaniel. I am just surmising what I think could possibly be going on with his mental health. Before I get started, I just want to share one of my sources with you all, and that would be Dr. Todd Grande on YouTube. He is a licensed professional counselor, and on his YouTube channel, he discusses the psychology of a lot of true crime cases. He's awesome.
His sister's music is mediocre at best.
Yes.
They have the same last name, Megan. That's the joke.
Hysterical, Paul.
Thank you.
I'd check him out when you get the chance. Anyway, I was personally a little bit surprised on the lack of mental health information I was able to find on the internet about Stephen. So let's go over the first questions that come to mind when it comes to Stephen McDaniel. What was up with that TV interview, and what was going on when he was being interrogated by police? During the TV interview, as Paul stated, we see Stephen shift from being helpful and talking about his friend to being what appears as shock after the reporter mentions a body has been found. So one of the detectives talks about how Stephen was pretty much catatonic after this, and like Paul said, he gives him a sternum rub, and Stephen snaps out of it.
And really quick, for those who don't know what a sternal rub is, it is it's like a medical technique kind of that we use. Basically, you make like a fist with your hand, and you take your knuckles and you press it firmly against someone's sternum and you rub up and down. It's very uncomfortable. We use it usually when somebody is unconscious to try to wake them up. You know, it's a little bit of pain, frankly, and usually you can get a pain response from somebody. So that's what that is.
So after, Stephen snaps out of it, he goes back to, being quote unquote helpful. He decides he's going to talk to the TV reporters again. One thing I notice in the second half of the interview is Stephen appears to be mimicking the emotions of the people around him, meaning his emotions, they seem forced. They don't seem genuine.
Yeah, this white knight act is fucking transparent as shit.
Like, he's crying. He can't believe someone would do this, but at the end of the day, we know that he knows Lauren is dead and that he's done this, and so he's not upset at this. Mimicking is observing someone else's emotions and using them as your own. And like I had previously mentioned, this is what I think is going on for the rest of the interview. I also find a lot of what he says to be rehearsed. No matter what the reporter seems to ask him, he just kind of says, the last time anyone saw her was when she went to go jogging on Saturday morning. She was such a nice person. I don't know who would want to hurt her.
And really quick, just a small little thing, because language is important, people. You can rehearse all you want and you can make the conscious decision, but language reveals what you really know. What did he say about her specifically? What was the phrase?
She was a nice person. I don't know who'd want to hurt her.
She was a nice person, or she is a nice person?
Yeah.
Little things like that. Was past tense. Just a little way of showing you that he knows that she is past tense at this point.
That body is hers. Yeah. Now, in the police interrogation, after the TV interview, when the police bring Stephen back in for questioning, we see another side of Stephen. He's withdrawn. He's not making eye contact. He's giving one-word answers. I happen to believe that this is an act and not related to any mental health diagnosis he may or may not have. Now, whether this is to make himself appear incompetent or to outsmart the police, I don't know. I just feel like this presentation was an act, and after watching videos of his appeal trial, I'm almost convinced of it. Stephen is so much more put together during the appeal trial. He's articulate. He's able to provide more than one-word answers. Like I said, I really just feel like that was some sort of premeditated act during the investigation. Okay, so now getting into his potential mental health diagnosis. Upon researching Stephen, it appears that those who knew him all had similar ways of describing him.
Asshole?
And this is how I want my friends to describe me, honestly.
Oh, no.
Creepy, weird, smart, awkward, bizarre, and isolative.
I mean, like 3 of those aren't necessarily bad. But I'm a little surprised that there was one description that wasn't in there. Little Mr. I'm going to save it for marriage. And that is...
Oh, well, wait. I'm not done.
Okay. I apologize. You continue.
Some
that
people...
big sexy brain of yours.
Some people, one of which was his undergrad roommate, who, can I just say, has an amazing name. Do you want to hear this guy's name?
I do.
Thaddeus Money.
I'm sorry. Fucking what?
Thaddeus Money.
Like Money? Like
yes,
currency?
Thaddeus Money.
He's going to get fat money, yo.
That is such a pimp name. I love it.
Oh my God, yes. Please. He needs to become... I mean, pimps are atrocious and they treat sex workers very, very terribly. But like a 1970s-esque, like Gator from fucking The Other Guys. That's what he's got to be.
Oh my God.
That's incredible.
Anyway, Thaddeus Money described him as...
Quentin Tarantino character.
He described him as reliable and hardworking. Something I found interesting was that a lot of his law school peers felt he had the potential to be dangerous.
Oh, no way.
Ironically enough, Lauren felt that if Stephen was dangerous, she would be safe since he liked her.
Oh.
I don't think anyone's been more wrong since Steve Harvey said the wrong winner of Miss Universe.
Oh man, I remember 2019.
Was that 2019? I don't
remember.
Actually, I think this might have been before that.
Yeah, it was the Oscars, right? Okay, so up until that point, it was Lauren Giddings, and then Steve Harvey just edged her out for being the most wrong about something.
I'm sorry, it says it on the card. Sorry.
With his little mustache, Mr. Potato Head looking motherfucker.
He was so shocked. He was more shocked than Steven was about them finding a body. All right, maybe cut that out.
Oh, no, we're putting a compare and contrast video up. Who is more shooketh? Steve McDaniels or Steve Harvey? Battle of the Steves. Which Steve fucked up harder?
Oh my God. Stephen believed in zombies and would often ask people where they would go if there was a zombie invasion.
Whoa. Don't fucking gloss over that. He believed in zombies?
He believed that zombies were a potential threat to society, yes. And his roommate, Thaddeus Money, verifies that, and a couple of his other law school peers.
All right, now, I'm not going to pretend that I don't personally have a zombie contingency plan. Max Brooks made sure of it that I would be adequately prepared. I have a family, and you never know. But that's all in fun. I don't actually... there's zombies. Yeah, that could happen.
Well, Paul, if Big Pharma keeps getting their way with these experimental vaccinations and money laundering...
Megan, please.
Who knows where society's going to be?
Megan, please, stop.
I mean, has anyone asked Joe Rogan or Candace Owens what they would do in a zombie apocalypse? Megan. Because I feel like personally, I feel... It's my personal right. I feel that they are the experts.
Oh, there it went. There's half the audience gone again.
Another question he would ask people is how they would commit the perfect murder.
Once again, everyone likes to have their theoretical little, you use an icicle and then there's no weapon, or, you freeze a lamb leg and then you serve it to the investigator. But like he's legitimately asking more than one person?
Asking, yep.
That seems...
These are like his icebreakers.
That's almost worse than mine.
Yeah, these are his icebreakers.
I'm starting to think that something's not right in the head about this man.
Right. These questions demonstrate the fantasy world that Stephen was living in. In the same interview with Thaddeus Money. I purposely threw that one in there.
That was an intentional one.
Daddy Monet.
Unlike when you mistook Crocodile Dundee for Tan Pants Marie.
Or I can't even remember his real name to compare it to the joke.
Iago? When you thought Iago was Baboose?
Baboo
And what did you think Jafar's name was? Gaspar. Everyone remembers the villain from Aladdin. Baboose and Gaspar. Stop right there, Jafar.
Okay.
That was for you, Dave. My co-host of the other podcast.
Anyway, Thaddeus Money reported in an interview that Stephen was raised in a very conservative family and was conservative himself. He was so conservative, in fact, that apparently he made Rush Limbaugh look liberal.
Oh, wow, that's pretty fucking conservative.
Yeah. Moving on from that statement. And Paul, I know that you mentioned earlier that he was staving himself for marriage.
Yeah, that was definitely a choice he made. It was a voluntary choice.
Yeah, but he obviously had these very devious...
proclivities?
Yes, sexual tendencies, I was going to say. I think that when you're raised in a household that isn't open to discussing things such as sex and where you're led to believe that sex is saved for marriage with the intent to procreate, it's possible to develop unhealthy ideas and distortions about what sex is.
That's why it's important at the family dinner table to just occasionally throw in a conversation about a sex act. Sometimes you're like, hey, a little bit of cunnilingus and french fries for everyone. Let's just talk about it. No, that also seems like it would form a very disturbed person. So don't do that either. Yeah. There's a happy medium is what I'm saying. It's somewhere in the middle.
The fact that Stephen was watching Lauren in her apartment without her consent is just one example of his devious sexual behaviors known as voyeuristic disorder.
Yes, and to further this point, because I don't know if I made it fully clear, Lauren lived on the second story. There was no easy access to her window. For him to get that video, he had to get a series of poles or a very long stick.
He had to put in work.
Yes, and he had to tape the camera to it and film it without knowing what he was even shooting. That's a lot of effort to put into being a fucking creep.
Wow. He can do all that, and you can't wash a pan that's been just soaking in the sink for several days. Wow.
Well, I'm too busy cooking literally every meal that our family eats, Megan, because once again, we don't succinct to gender roles in our house. You're welcome.
Anyway, for those of you who don't know, voyeuristic disorder is recurrent and intense sexual arousal from observing an unsuspecting person who is naked, in the process of disrobing, or engaging in sexual activity as manifested by fantasies, urges, or behaviors. Like we just said, this pretty much just fits with what Stephen was doing by watching her, videotaping her at all hours of the day. No matter what she was doing, it seemed like he was getting pleasure from it.
Yeah, and it's funny because that makes it, for me, weirder that it was just the attraction to seeing the mundane. It's not like Porky's where he's watching her take a shower or something where there's at least a shorter causal link to it being sexualized. It's literally just just her living room.
I don't even know so much if it's the fact that it's mundane as much as it is there's that rush where it's I'm doing this and I may or may not get caught.
And how many times do you think he entered her apartment before?
Oh my God.
Just smelling things.
I can't even.
The violation. Imagine. And she knew something was up. She knew something was off.
Yeah, that's got to be terrifying to feel that someone's been in your apartment, but maybe not really have the proof to prove it, just to feel like there's been a presence other than yourself.
I hope to God that no one has ever watched you or me walking around this house when we don't think we're being watched, because the shit that we do and say, or I should say sing, everything's a song.
Yeah.
It's all just it's insanity.
Me just singing to the animals and to myself.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
The songs we sing to our son that make no fucking sense.
What are these people doing? Me exhaustedly undressing at the end of the night, putting on my little flannel pajamas from Target. No one's getting off on that. Not even my husband, so.
I'd have to be here first. And out protecting the people of insert name of town here.
Yeah. We're going too deep into this episode. It's the tequila.
I'm having brandy.
I also believe that Stephen is a sexual sadist. You know,
The violent porn was, once again illegal, but
yeah,
weird.
Violent pornography and sexual images, that really is a sign of sexual sadism. And I think he killed Lauren as a way to sexually dominate her.
Do you believe that the fact that she was moving very soon was a contributing factor to him pushing it to the level he did?
100% yes. So Lauren rejected Stephen.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I know, right?
Aww.
Crazy. And that did not sit well with him. Although he did not actually sexually assault Lauren, in his mind, killing Lauren was the only way he could have her. This thought process just crosses over into magical thinking territory. Magical thinking is described as the erroneous belief that one's thoughts, words, or actions will somehow cause or prevent a specific outcome in a way that defies commonly understood laws of cause and effect. That's in the DSM.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So in his mind, I believe Stephen believed that he and Lauren were much closer than they actually were. And in killing her, that prevents her from becoming closer to anyone else.
Technically it does, but yikes.
In his mind, he had to do this because she was moving, she was going to become closer to anyone else, and he couldn't have that.
Yeah.
And obviously it's not her fault, but I think because Lauren was genuinely a nice and kind person and maybe, took the 2 minutes to ask Stephen how his day was, if she saw him outside of his apartment
they
and
were
whatnot.
neighbors for 3 years,
Yeah.
so you build up some level of a rapport at that point. Maybe he's not coming over for coffee, but you'd say hi.
When you're a loner and you don't have a lot of friends, that seems like someone that's your best friend.
Yeah.
If that is the most human interaction and conversation you have in a day, then yeah, in that person's mind, it's like, yeah, that's Lauren. That's like my best friend. We're super close.
Why do you think I proposed to Megan after dating her for 8 months?
You were desperate? You didn't learn your lesson?
No, I just knew I punched way out of my weight class on that one. It was like, I am locking this shit down before she realizes that this is a terrible idea. And now you have given me a son, and he won't stop screaming and trying to clean up dishes. He's a strange little man. He's got 2 assholes. True story.
And demanding cookies. Yeah, that was terrible. He had to get surgery at 4 months old. I
It was
also
a
gave
dimple, it
you
wasn't
a
really.
daughter too.
That's true. Well, you came with the daughter, which is honestly better because I got to skip a bunch of really
Paul
crappy
got
stuff.
single mom Barbie.
Yeah.
Parents' basement not included.
And here's the thing, because here we go. How does this tie in with the case? I'm going to throw some incel logic at you. Megan was a solid 8, but having a kid, boom, automatic -2 points, brings her down to a 6. That's right in my territory where I can lock that in. Now, why do I bring up incel type terminology? Because I'm pretty sure Steve McDaniels was a fucking incel. He seemed like the kind of guy that would post a picture of the Joker with some quote that he never goddamn said. He seemed like he watched the Joker and Falling Down and connected with the hero character. And I say hero very loosely. He saw Fight Club and was like, Tyler Durden is the fucking man.
It's very possible.
I know this isn't a official mental health anything. This is more of a newer concept, but I don't know. I see this killing. I see the way he acted, and I'm just like, you seem like a fucking incel.
I mean, there's a level of sexual frustration here, which is playing into the sexually deviant behavior.
So you say that this is all very sexually driven for him, then I gotta ask, why wasn't she sexually assaulted by him? You'd think that would why not? If that's what was such a motivating factor, why did he not cross that final line?
For Stephen, I think it might have been easier to kill her. I think he might have had anxiety about performing. And I also think that this is killing someone is quote unquote ultimate way to dominate them. I mean, right?
Yeah.
To have someone.
That's the final. It's the final thing you can do.
He is the last person to touch Lauren while she is alive. He gets to watch the life go out of her. There is really not a lot more personal things than that.
Yeah.
To be with someone in their final moments and to have control over their final moments. And so, I think there's a lot of factors at play here. I think one is like performance-wise, like obviously he's not someone with a lot of experience. And two, I think at this point in his fantasy, it was, I'm going to have her and all of her, and no one is going to get the chance, to have her in a way that I didn't. And so after saying all this, what do I think the Mac Daddy mental health diagnosis of Stephen McDaniel could be? I touched upon voyeuristic disorder and him being, possibly being a sexual sadist. Again, not
second podcast in a row that it has sexual sadists involved.
I just love me some sexual sadists. It's just not really. It's just very common in true crime. But again, not diagnosing, but just making an assessment. I assess that Stephen McDaniel could have schizotypal.
Schizo what?
Schizotypal personality disorder.
Oh, it's actually schizotypal?
Schizotypal personality disorder.
Not schizotypical.
No, schizotypal.
Oh, I don't know what this is.
Not to be confused with schizophrenia, schizophreniform, or schizoaffective disorder, or schizoid personality disorder. This is schizotypal personality disorder.
Now, I am almost positive that you're making one of those up. But no, those are all
real. And they all involve breaks
from reality.
Yep.
Okay.
But schizotypal personality disorder is defined as...
Before Megan goes into this, I just want to put it out there, because this is especially true of people with schizophrenia and all other umbrella, whatever. But people who are mentally ill are far, far, far more often likely to be the victims of violent crimes than the perpetrators. Obviously, that is not the case here, but things like this are the exception. They are not the rule.
Yes, and schizotypal is not generally associated with violence or killing. I will say, though, that paraphilic disorders, like voyeuristic disorder, like sexual sadism disorder, are, because those disorders are about violating people's boundaries. They're usually not consensual, right? Like, you don't watch your neighbor undress through their window. Like, that's not typically something you ask, like, hey, do you mind if I, watch you undress through your window tonight?
I mean, if you can get consent for that, even better. But it unfortunately seems like consent is not part of the equation for this guy.
Yeah. Also, pedophilic disorder, that is not, that is, you're a pedophile, you're committing a crime.
Yeah.
If you're acting on those urges, I should say.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be a fun rabbit hole to go down one day, the world of non-offending pedophiles and how we're supposed to treat them.
Yikes.
Yeah. Fun
story real quick before I get into
real quick fun story about pedophilia. Hit me.
Well, no, it's not about
pedophilia.
Not about pedophilia.
Never mind.
It's actually about exhibitionist disorder.
I was hoping this was the mac and cheese story.
No, I won't share that.
Okay. The audience will... What the fuck is that? Continue, I'm sorry.
I had to work with a client one day. I had to find him resources because he was a bus driver. Mm-hmm. And one day while he was waiting to drive his bus, he decided to expose himself on the park bench. And when talking with him about this incident, he was just like, yeah, I thought I'd give him a little sneak peek. It's exciting. Just a little sneak peek. I didn't touch anybody. I mean, I've rubbed up against people before, which is a whole different thing. That's frauderism. But, he's like, this, I thought it would make someone's day, get excited, expose myself.
Audrey,
I was
walking home the other day, and this gentleman he was on the park bench, and his penis was out. And, I was having a bad day, and I just thought, isn't that Just special. Isn't that? Here am I, for the grace of God. Just a little cock and balls out for me. It made my day. Really, it made my day, Audrey.
He really did not see the problem.
Like what the?
Literally did not see the problem. Didn't think he needed treatment. I was like, sir, we don't do that.
No, and we try not to kink shame, but for the love of God, get consent.
It's also, you can't really get consent in a public place where there could be children.
No.
There are non-consenting people around you.
Yes.
So that's a problem.
A little sneak peek. Oh my God.
Just a little sneak peek, get me excited. Just the way he described it. I've also worked with a sex offender once who told me he was a gentle sex offender. It was gentle.
Oh, that's good. Because there's nothing worse than a sex offender who's rough about it.
Yeah, like,
know?
oh God, at least you were like nice about it.
Yeah.
I won't even get into that one.
No,
I don't know how we got on this.
On the spectrum of Michael Jackson to Catholic priest, he was, he was a
he
little more towards
Louis C.K.
He was the man in the mirror. He's trying to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer.
I don't know the lyrics, so I can't continue those for you.
That's fine.
But anyway, now that we're done with that tangent, back to schizotypal personality disorder. It is defined as a pervasive pattern of social and interpersonal deficits marked by acute discomfort with and reduced capacity for close relationships, as well as by cognitive or perceptual distortions and eccentricities of behavior, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. What contexts, might you ask? Well,
I do ask.
Ideas of reference, odd beliefs or magical thinking.
Boom, check-a-roo.
Unusual perceptual experiences, including bodily illusions, odd thinking and speech, which, also thinking back to that police interrogation video, could some of this been showing through? Yes, but I still think he faked it. Suspicious or paranoid ideation, possibly. Inappropriate or constricted affect, yes. The TV interview.
Yes, 100%.
Behavior or appearance that is odd, eccentric, or peculiar, yes. I mean, even just looking at Steven, could you imagine, having a lawyer just, looking as, disheveled as him? Like, this is my guy. This is my lawyer.
Is that Serge Tankian from System of a Down? I loved your song, Violent Pornography. Oh, it all comes full circle yet again.
Lack of close friends or confidants other than first-degree relatives, check. Excessive social anxiety that does not diminish with familiarity and tends to be associated with paranoid fears rather than negative judgments about self.
Huh.
Check.
Check-a-rooney.
So Stephen has a lot of these markers, and I think the biggest indicator of that is just how he was described as bizarre and weird, how he was socially awkward, and then again, going back to that magical thinking, the odd beliefs that he had, how he really didn't pick up on social interactions well. I mean, I think it's possible that he could have this personality disorder. And once again, I like to reiterate that, just because he may or may not have this, it doesn't mean that, or just because he may have this, there's no direct link between this disorder and likely to viciously murder a girl.
To really quickly reference another fantastic podcast that I love, Last Podcast on the Left. I love you guys, but one of the hosts said something that I absolutely love, and it's a quote that has stuck with me. Mental health is not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Yep.
And just because you're mentally ill, you still have one hand on the steering wheel.
Yeah, you have to take care of it. I mean, imagine getting into a car accident, you shatter your leg, and then you don't seek treatment. And then you complain about how, you can't drive anymore, you can't get around, it's difficult for you to do daily activities. And it's you're responsible for going to the hospital to go see a doctor to get that checked out.
Yeah.
Because with treatment and with time and with effort, that can be healed.
Yeah. Now, if you could just tell me exactly how long and how much it will cost so I can tell my insurance company, or else I'll sue you.
Sure, you have a broken leg. Just kidding. We won't get into the No Surprise Act of 2022.
Fucking some real bullshit. So I'd love to know your thoughts on the assessment of the DA, because I personally agreed with him, and he said that he felt if they didn't catch Stephen McDaniels, that this was the birth of a serial killer, that he would kill again. What are your thoughts? Do you think that that is the road that this was going down? Was this a one-time deal?
I 100% agree with the DA. Being that Stephen has sexual sadist tendencies, I can pretty much guarantee that he would have offended again.
Yeah.
Because this is how he seeks pleasure. He got caught during his first attempt because he messed up. He got sloppy.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that almost thinks that he saw himself as like this Ted Bundy character, not in like the attractive, charismatic sense, but in the fact that like he thought he was gonna like get away with it. Like he thought that he was smarter than everyone else, that there was no way that he was gonna be tied to this crime. And I mean, when you think about it, luck.
I was gonna say
really plays a role in how he got caught.
Like, there's always something to be said about good police work, but good police work can only take you so far. Now, in this case, there was certainly no bad police work. Nothing stands out as being like, oh, that was bad. Like, maybe there was some issue with the way his apartment was secured, but that ended up not really being it was a moot point. The police work was good. The working with the FBI was good, but the reality of the situation is literally the only fucking reason this conviction happened was luck. And I mean dumb luck. If those cops showed up 10 minutes later, that body was gone. No body, no crime. That is fucking it.
Right, because of the garbage, right? They blocked the driveway.
They blocked the entrance to the that's it. No body, like that's it. You wouldn't fucking have anything.
Yeah, they blocked the entrance to the garbage area so the garbage truck couldn't come and pick up the garbage can that contained Lauren's torso.
Yeah. If Stephen didn't dump her body in the apartment, if he dumped all of it at Mercer College, that's it. No case. If Stephen didn't have that weird breakdown, I don't know if they would have ever been able to get back into his apartment and discover the master key. If he just hid the master keys, not there. Like, so many dumb things had to go wrong for Stephen to get caught. And even then, it all hinged on this fucking video, which really is circumstantial evidence, but it just was so overwhelmingly incriminating for him. It just looked so bad that they knew this cannot go to trial. You'll get eaten alive. But like, in a world where they don't find that video and this goes to trial, there's a very real possibility that he would have gotten away with it. And not to the fault of any police work. It's just, there was not a lot of evidence.
Yeah, and the fact that he saved the hacksaw instead of trying to hide it or, get rid of it makes me believe that this was going to be his MO, like attack women, kill them, and then dismember them with a hacksaw.
I gotta know, why did he confess to burglary? Why did he confess to stealing the condoms? What was that? Is such a fucking crazy misstep for him to make.
I'm not really sure. I'm not sure.
Do you think he was just caught off guard? He thought, this has nothing to do with anything?
It's possible. It's possible he was trying to distract the police or catch them out off guard. Like, wait, what? Why'd you do that? But it's also possible, once again, Stephen is not good at picking up on social cues.
Yeah.
So by sharing information like this, he might not have seen an issue with it. How is he, how are the police going to connect me to stealing condoms to me breaking into Lauren's apartment and killing her? For him, maybe in his mind, those two things just didn't connect.
Yeah.
Try to give him a call at Hancock Prison. Give him a little call. Should I call? Oh, you know what? I'm going to call everyone that we've talked about. Chris White.
That's a cop I work with. It's
I was gonna say,
Chris Watts and Cindy White.
Chris White and Christine White.
Yes, our realtor, Chris White. Chris Watts
Not
and
to be confused
Cindy
with the Chris
White.
The Chris White that I know that is now a marine biologist. And by I know, I mean I went to school with him, never spoke a word to him. And now I'm actually realizing that his name is Tim White, not Chris White. So your Chris White is the only Chris White I know. He's a great realtor.
Oh, my God.
Anyway, wouldn't that be something if I could get an interview with all three of these people? You know what? Chris Watts would be more than happy to talk to me because he's a man of God now.
I just don't even want to give that fucker
I would
a platform.
Never. As a parent, I could never. Like, there's only so far I could go listening, like, to some of the stuff that, like, I read about. Like, I can't even imagine having to be, like, the psychologist or counselor that has to talk with them. If you're a parent, when you're a parent, crimes against children hit different. And you will not convince me otherwise.
Well, as somebody who's seen their fair share of dead children, yeah, that's some shit that just stays in your mind, pals, forever.
Yeah. Don't release this man.
No.
Georgia parole, do not release this man.
He will reoffend.
He is 100% a danger to society.
Hey, how come his appeal didn't go through?
Right? Yeah, this is like my favorite part. So watching his appeal trial, he tries to appeal his sentence because he felt he was not properly represented by his defense team. And so one of the witnesses he represents himself, by the way. One of the witnesses he calls to stand is his former defense lawyer who, like you said, was Lauren's professor. And his argument is that he feels he did not get a fair sentence. And Stephen's defense lawyer says to Stephen, he's like, listen, I believe that you were innocent up until you confessed to this crime. And on top of that, Stephen, in a death penalty state, you got life in prison with the possibility of parole. In 2044, you have the possibility of being released back into society. How is that an unfair sentence for what you've done? And he's just silent.
Yeah.
Like, what? The sexual sadism, that is the reason that I would not release him. Because after having this little taste of pleasure of acting out this fantasy, it is impossible for them to stop.
Yeah, no, he's never going to reach that high again.
No,
ever.
Absolutely not. So,
by the way, really quick side, I said he gets out in 2044. It's a 40-year minimum for parole. He was sentenced in 2014, but obviously the crime happened in 2011, and I don't know if they count the interim as time served, so he might actually be eligible for parole in 2041. Sorry, I didn't look that up. My bad.
Yeah, I think it is 2041, but
that makes more sense.
Either way,
he's not getting out.
Don't let him out, Georgia.
No.
If you do anything right in your little state, please don't let this man free.
I mean, they've done a lot of things right in that state. Let's calm down.
They have. I'm just kidding, Georgia. Oh, my God.
Georgia's lovely.
We've never been there, Paul.
We've driven through it many times.
We drove through
You don't know what I do before you.
Oh, I've seen pictures. It's not pretty.
But no, Georgia's great. They film all the movies there.
Oh, yeah,
just
you're
all
right.
of the movie. If it's a movie, they shot it in Georgia.
Anyway, in closing, he shouldn't be released. And this is just a really tragic case, for Lauren's family, for her friends and peers at Mercer University, for the people she could have helped, for Butterbean, her dog.
Poor Butterbean. But just for the family, like, it's a closed casket. There's not much to bury. Just knowing that, like, yeah, her head is just somewhere. We'll never know where. It's just gone.
Yeah.
And the way they found out, it's just horrible.
I can't even imagine that.
Yeah. Fuck you, Stephen McDaniels. You're a piece of shit. You don't deserve the surname McDaniels, which of course we've established multiple times is associated with the fictitious Tom Cruise vehicle of the mid-90s, Harry McDaniels. Great film that doesn't exist. And that is...
Oh, one thing I'd like to say.
One thing.
If you do have a gut feeling like you're being watched or someone's following you, please tell someone. There is no harm in sharing your feelings or concerns.
Yeah.
even if you feel like you might be crazy or whatnot, it doesn't hurt to tell someone, because
I only wish that Lauren Giddings did that sooner, because by the time she expressed that concern, it was too late.
And I mean, she might have just realized like towards the end, you know, she maybe didn't have any idea, like, did it say how long he was doing this?
We
like
we
3
don't know.
years?
Well, the key to her apartment appeared new, but he had the master key, so we just don't know how long he had been doing it. Any amount of time is too much, though.
Yeah. Please tell someone so you don't end up like Lauren Giddings. Or just violated in general.
Yeah, even if you just like broke into your apartment and tried on your underwear and rearranged a bunch of shit in your like refrigerator, like that is in and of itself a horrific violation.
Yeah.
My sources for this episode are an article from WGXA.tv, an article from the Cinemaholic.com, and an article from the BaltimoreSun.com. My sources also include interview and interrogation videos that have been posted online, an episode of Dateline NBC entitled The Watcher, and an episode of Nightmare Next Door entitled The Master Key. That one's not as good. I'm going to be honest, the Master Key one's not as good because they had to change a bunch of names and stuff, and there was actually some conflicting information between that one and the Dateline one, so I deferred to the Dateline one thinking that was more accurate.
My sources are a YouTube video entitled Stephen McDaniel, Lauren Giddings Murder Case, Mental Health and Personality by Dr. Todd Grande, as well as an article from AboveTheLaw.com titled Stephen McDaniel's Ex-Roommate Speaks. Say hello to Thad Money. And, as always, the DSM-5.
Still haven't read through DSMs 1 through 4. Totally lost in the plot. Book make no fucking sense. That is it for tonight's episode, my murderites. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope the new year is treating you with a modicum of respect and civility, because god damn, I think it's long overdue for all of us.
It certainly is. And once again, I'd like to remind you to please subscribe to our podcast wherever it is that you're listening. Tell your friends about it. Leave comments. If you have any questions about the mental health or psych piece of these podcasts, I'd be happy to answer.
That goes doubly for any law enforcement questions. We have the email, The Origins of Email.
The origins of email.
The origins of email. No, we have the email, The Origins of Evil @gmail.com. It's in our description. You can send us cases you want us to do, questions, comments, concern, an additional thing that starts with a C, a K, or a Q. I don't know. I just want the alliteration to continue, God damn it.
But yeah, having case recommendations would be really great. I'd be happy to dive into any cases that anyone is curious about.
Mm-hmm. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, this has been The Origins of Evil. I am Paul Danino Braun.
And I'm Megan Braun.
Remember, murderites, never go to a second location.
The Origins of Evil.